Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us as we talk through Google Search, Rapid Fire 2016 Predictions and 2015 Analysis. Joining me on the line today, I have Larry Kim and Pete Meyers from Moz. Thanks, guys, for being here.
Hey, Pete.
Here. Hey.
Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah. So Pete Meyers is the marketing scientist at Moz. He is interested in data and making data cool and actionable and easy to manipulate, and believes that the best ideas and data are useless unless they're communicated well. So Pete, thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to see what you have to share today on the SEO side of the search results. And then we also have Larry Kim. Larry is the founder and CTO of WordStream. He has a background in software engineering and has been nominated the most influential PPC expert 3 years running. Both super smart, talented, successful guys here. We're really excited to see what you have to share on today's session. For the audience, for today we're going to talk through our favorite PPC and SEO features from 2015 on Google. Larry is going to share his PPC secret weapons, and Pete is going to share his super awesome SEO strategies. And then we'll have a live Q&A where we'll talk through some expectations for what's going to happen in the world of paid and organic search for 2016. If you guys have questions on the line, please feel free to enter them into our chat box, or go ahead and get on Twitter and under the hashtag WordStream 2016 Predictions. We'll be monitoring that there if there's anything explicitly that you would like to hear from our audience. And just to get to a little bit of information about you guys, I do have a poll question here. So we want to know, what is your focus in 2016? Are you solely focused on PPC? Are you solely focused on SEO? Or do you have a combination of both in your strategy? Awesome, and I like these results. It looks like about 80% of the audience is doing a mix of both PPC and SEO. So this should be really fantastic information for you guys today. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll and go ahead and hand it over to Larry to talk through his favorite strategies in paid search for 2015.
Great. Thanks, Noel, and thanks, Pete, again for joining us. Hey, Noel, just had a question for you. Of the ones who didn't do both, because I couldn't see the poll, were there more SEOs or more PPCs? Just
It looks like it was 6% PPC, 16% SEO, so a little heavier on the SEO, which is interesting.
Okay, well, then we'll have to give more time to Pete. All right. Well, look, Noel just asked me to put together kind of a mix of kind of the former favorite features in terms of PPC advertising on AdWords for the year, and so I just wanted to kind of, there's thousands of these features coming out every year, literally like something like 800 or something like this, and it's really difficult to keep up with all the different changes. So I just wanted to highlight a few of them that I really liked in terms of kind of them being relatively easy to implement and having a huge kind of a lot of leverage and impact in terms of their benefit from having used those features and functions. So that's just how I was thinking about how to pick these things. And so the first one I want to talk a little about was this idea of new innovations in the AdWords ads that actually make it so that people are more likely to convert. So like typically, people click on these ads and you have to pay for them, and maybe 2 or 3 or 4% of them convert into ads, and you're spending all this time doing landing page optimization. But one of the really neat things that I think has happened in the last year is the leverage in terms of conversion rate optimization. There's more leverage, in terms of CRO, conversion rate optimization, in the ads rather than on the landing page. Meaning, like if someone clicks on your ad, it's kind of too late. They've already clicked on it. They've already decided to click on this thing, and it's not much you can do about it. And there's actually much more leverage you can to conversion rates by making people more likely to convert before they click on the ad. And so to explain the situation a little bit, I just want to illustrate some background story here. So last 2 months ago, Google announced that more than half of their searches were happening on mobile, and I actually looked into our WordStream database of thousands of customers, and I just wanted to see like what that looked like, and I just pulled up this information a couple of weeks ago. And basically you can see like there's a decline in desktop clicks and a huge increase in mobile over the last 36 months, and the poor tablet's going nowhere. But basically it's kind of a really steep transition over the last couple months, and so one of my favorite features here in terms of like improving the conversion rates are these new call-only campaigns that were released, I think, in the second quarter of this year. And I think it's really interesting because you don't have to pay for those desktop clicks where you send them to these landing pages, and you have to pay for 100 clicks, and then maybe you get 2 or 3 conversions out of that. Here, it's almost like you're just paying per lead. So you only pay when someone calls your business, and I think that's tremendously more valuable in terms of conversion rates, because it's basically here's kind of why I think it's so great. You've got the desktop conversion funnel where you send people to this landing page, and 97% of them die, and then 3% of them you capture the lead. Whereas the mobile conversion funnel, using these new ad formats for mobile, which is more than half the traffic, typically you can get much better conversion rates because you're paying for the calls. And so it's not only that, it's not just about the conversion rate, it's also about the qualification rate. Like people are more likely to buy, or conversely, people are less likely to buy the more time that elapses between the time that they originally reached out to you and the time that you get back to them. And same with the qualification rate and the contact rate. That's your ability to even get back in touch with them, like get them back on the phone. Half of them, after a day, you won't even be able to call them back. They won't respond. So that's some research from MIT. And so I really like this one because it's kind of changing it from pay-per-click to pay-per-lead, and for a lot of companies to do this type of lead generation, B2B, that kind of stuff. This is quite a game changer, and that's relatively new. Another crazy way that these new ad formats really increase conversion rates is that they communicate a lot more information than just like a 25-character headline and a 30-character description. So shopping ads, which are not new, they've been around for like 4 or 5 years, but basically these have very, very high double-digit conversion rates to sales, as opposed to the typical 2 or 3% conversion to sales, because so much information, like the style, the price, the brand, all this information is being communicated to the searcher before they click on it. So it's not like before where you had to click on all those different text ads and you click on it, it's like, oh, that's not in my price range, or this is not my style, or this is for kind of an ambiguous search for blue dresses. Here, if someone clicks on this ad, what they're really saying is, this is exactly the style that I'm looking for in the price range that I'm comfortable with. I'm basically looking at this point to just place an order, and so that's why this is so much more powerful than just plain text links. And so what Google has done, I think this was again in the first half of the year, they started rolling out, like using a similar principle of like using more visual information and more granular information, communicating that information to the user kind of in the ad, and so that in turn dramatically improves conversion rates. Here's one for automotive ads that lets you have an image carousel for photos of the car, and then if you then kind of navigate to them, like if you click into this and expand it, there's like ability to call or get directions to a dealer. Same thing with hotel ads, where it communicates like the reviews and the and the prices, clicking to book, shopping extensions. Like, this is incredibly powerful. It's even more powerful on mobile because it can connect you with like a store nearby. There's this thing called local inventory ads, and it'll even tell you whether or not it's in stock and where. So insurance, buying insurance, or getting credit cards. Like, the point is, like, there's so many, like, dozens of these new, powerful, rich mobile ad experiences that feel a lot more like apps than they do like blue link text ads. And what these do is they suck the conversions out of the SERP, so that all of those conversions will go to the one that's like all shiny and has all the visual stuff. Here's one for mortgages. And so I just wanted to summarize kind of this thought here, and that is, historically, when we think about conversion rate optimization, there's been so much focus on, like, the button colors and getting the page to have all the right kind of visual elements. And what I'm saying is that, like, in 2015, in my opinion, the leverage shifted from kind of doing these dumb tweaks on landing pages to like to more upstream, in terms of the ads, and being able to really bias people to really buy your thing before even paying for these clicks. So that's kind of interesting, I thought. So going down to my number 3, crazy new innovation for 2015, I wanted to talk a little bit about these ad customizers. And which have a tremendous impact on the click-through rates of ads, because this is important, of course, because the higher the click-through rate, the lower you pay for your cost per click, and also the more often your ads show. And so, technically speaking, this was actually released in the last quarter of 2014, though most of the adoption, being a relatively new feature from last year, most of it is being used this season. And basically, all it's doing is it's kind of like dynamic keyword insertion, but allowing you to kind of create these kind of fear triggers, fear of missing out, like sale ends in 5 hours, or quick, only 3 of these are left in stock. These types of dynamic countdowns to create a sense of fear and urgency, to make sure that people, when they click on your ads, they're kind of in the mindset of like, I need to buy this thing quick. And so it's really, really simple. All you do is, when you're creating your ads, you just insert the squiggly bracket, and then you can have all this dynamic text that'll be substituted with like a countdown, and it creates this urgency. And what we find is that these are so incredible that as your sale it gets to the expiry time, like whether it's like Friday evening or whatever, or if the quantity gets down to the last item, the conversion rate on those clicks increases 3-fold. Like, that's a big deal. Like, not talking about like a 1% increase or 2% increase. I'm talking 3 times increase. And so what a lot of companies are doing is they're doing this perpetual sales, where it's like, like J. Crew, where they always say like, oh, there's a sale on shirts for men, it ends Friday, and then lo and behold, next week there's another sale on men's shirts. All they're doing is they're just trying to trick you into buying that thing. It's not like they actually run out of shirts. That they have a lot of them. But nevertheless, they're just creating this perpetual sense of urgency, so that they can kind of clear the decks and get the demand filled. It definitely has an impact on click-through rates, which then improves the quality scores, and that is a great thing. I wanted to talk a little bit about display ad remarketing. So obviously, a lot of new features and functions in display ads. So just so we're all on the same page, when you're browsing those websites like CNN or the Weather Channel, and you see those kind of banner ads on those web pages, there's a very, very, very good chance that those ads are Google Display Network ads. So that's what we're talking about. And so just wanted to say that these the hack here is basically, this is a very, very powerful channel, but historically something like 2/3, so 67% of display ad images being served on the Google Display Network are not actually using images, which is one of the real benefits of using this ad format in the first place, to be able to convey sort of some certain emotional triggers or inspirational, memorable imagery. And so they're just text ads being formatted as images most of the time, and that's kind of disappointing. And so this year they came out with some new technologies. So some of it is one of the cool features is that if you have a text ad, it's going to automatically change itself into sort of like a pseudo image ad. Now it's not perfect, but what it does is that it's going to try to pull in your logo and your colors. Like it's basically analyzing your website and trying to figure out what's your brand colors and what's your logo look like, and it kind of squishes the ad into the right format, and it'll work in like all the different shapes and sizes for image ads, and that's kind of interesting. Another thing that's kind of interesting is if you have an actual image ad, this is kind of magical. Like if say you only had an image ad in a square format, it'll magically analyze that image and convert it into other, 4 or 5 other image ad formats, and then using like crazy Photoshop stuff, kind of stuff like moving things. I thought that was kind of interesting, and so I just wanted to remind people, when you're doing this display advertising, is typically targeted off of remarketing, and just wanted to remind people to be very aggressive with those impressions, and don't worry about being too creepy, because the more times people see these ads, the more likely they are to convert, and so and the interesting thing is like the less likely they are to click on your ads, but those who do click on it are more likely to convert if they've seen it many times. And so that's kind of interesting because it doesn't cost you anything to show these ads, and you only pay when someone clicks on the ad. So might as well get as many free impressions as you can. So the last thing I had here before handing things over to Pete, I wanted to talk a little bit about this new crazy feature called Customer Match. It's kind of a new ad targeting thing for search ads, as well as Gmail and YouTube ads. And so I think it's really interesting because in search advertising, typically you're not really targeting a certain individual. You're targeting like someone who searched on a certain keyword, or or you're retargeting to someone who visited a page on your website. You don't really know if it's Pete or Larry, but now you do, because you can just upload my email or Pete's email or your customers' emails or phone numbers and just upload them into the AdWords system, and basically it'll try to match those emails with logged-in users in Google. Google has all these services like Gmail and YouTube, and so there's a 50-50 chance that whoever is surfing, is actually logged into one or more Google services, and so that's how they're able to do that matching, and so you can then send specific ads to those people, based on their existence in your database and your ability to segment your email database. So I think it's kind of interesting because it's making search advertising feel much more like email marketing, where you can take customized messages to individuals or groups of people, and you don't have to worry about unsubscribes. In fact, you can even add people who aren't on your list into the list, and I think that's kind of interesting. And I just wanted to give you a quick example of the different targeting mechanisms for these search ads. So just pay attention to the green box at the bottom of your screen. Okay, the kind of the bright green highlighted box. Okay, so this is of 3 different campaigns that are targeting the exact same keywords. So it's just a set of a couple hundred keywords, but the point is that it's the identical set of keywords. The first one is targeted using just regular search. So anybody who happens to search on those keywords will see those ads. And we're getting clicks at a 1.99% click-through rate, but there's this far right. There's a column called cost conversion value divided by cost. That's the return on ad spend. So that basically means for every dollar spent on ads, what's the value in terms of like the sales. So like for every dollar made or spent, this guy using regular search was getting $3.72 worth of sales. So that was kind of interesting, but what we did was we targeted the same keywords in the second campaign using remarketing lists for search ads. So this is targeting those search ads to people who've recently visited his website in the last 30 days. And so same idea, fewer clicks, but much higher click-through rate, almost 12 six times higher, so 11 or 12% there, 11.82. Why? Because people who are familiar with your brand are more likely to click on your search results in the future. And notice how the conversion value is now 6 to 1. So for every dollar spent, this guy is making $6 of profit. And so, it gets even better with this notion of customer match, and this is, again, fewer clicks, unfortunately. But basically, he's uploaded his customer list of emails, and he's able to get, a small number of clicks. But those clicks that he does pay for, the click-through rate isn't as high, because like some of these emails might have been in his database like a year ago or 2 years ago. But basically, the point is it's a lower click-through rate, but he's able to get $8.4 per dollar spent on ads using customer match, using email targeting. So there you have it, just a simple example, and then we see these types of patterns, and there's a lot of interesting applications for this new technology in ads using e-commerce, for example. What you do is you would segment your user list into like new purchasers, or big spenders, or people whose warranties have expired, or people with abandoned shopping carts. Basically, just segment your email list as you would doing email marketing, but then instead of sending them emails, you're just shooting them ads, reminding them to do whatever it was you were hoping for them to do, and these ads can show up in the search results, of course, but also on Gmail ads in their inbox, and also in YouTube when they're watching cat videos or whatever. You can have those videos play as the pre-roll. And if you're interested in not only going after like your existing customers, but also new customers, a pretty simple hack is to take those email lists and just clone those audiences, and Google will automatically kind of figure out what are the different geographies and interests and characteristics and website browsing history of the people who you're targeting, and find more like them using the power of cloning. So that's actually all I had for my top four for search or paid search, and let's let Pete take it away here for his top kind of new changes in SEO. Pete, take it away.
All right, let me get set up. All right, can you hear me and can you see my screen?
Looks great.
All right, so thanks, Larry. I'm going to go through my kind of whirlwind tour of 2015. We don't have a ton of time, and get a little bit from a few different areas, and then talk about how I think that's going to lead into next year, because obviously things don't just restart in the new year. Google is kind of always evolving, and I think what happened this year tells us a lot about what will happen. So we'll start with algo updates. Of course, I manage the algo history for Moz and the Mozcast project, but I'm going to take all those hundreds of updates and smash them down into just two, because these are the two we freaked out about this year. And the first one was the Mobilegeddon, or what Google wants us to call the mobile-friendly update. They hate Mobilegeddon, and you can decide which one to call it depending on whether you want to piss off Google or not. And the thing about Mobilegeddon is it was one of the first big updates where Google had warned us in advance about it, which was a strange move for them, and it made people very nervous, and it made them sure that this was going to be huge. And so I want to talk about two effects of it. This is the data from Mozcast, and if you don't know the project, it essentially measures how Google changes from day to day, page one. And we measure this as a temperature in Fahrenheit, and so a normal day is about 70 degrees. The light blue bars are before Mobilegeddon hit. The 21st of April is the day they said it was going to hit. We saw something in the low 70s, not that exciting. And then on the 22nd, we saw a spike in the mid-70s. So a little bit of activity, nothing huge. You'll see another spike on the 24th. That's blue instead of orange, because essentially whatever happened that day happened to mobile and desktop the same way. So what we expected to see with the mobile update was that mobile results would start to diverge from desktop results. So this tracks about a week after the date they gave us, and even 2 weeks later, and now months later, the impact hasn't been huge. There's been some activity. There's some divergence now between mobile and desktop, but it's not what we expected. It isn't the huge event that we thought was coming. But here's what I want to say. It did do what Google wanted it to do, which is this. This is a graph of, on the first page of mobile results for our 10,000 keywords, how many of them had that mobile-friendly tag. how many were defined as mobile friendly by Google's algo. And what you can see is in the beginning of April, that number was actually pretty high. It was about 2/3 of the page one URLs we tracked. And so one of the reasons I think the impact wasn't huge was that we had already adopted mobile-friendly pages by their definition for the most part, probably more than people think. And so because that had happened, the impact wasn't as severe as it could have been. But what we see is then there's that little divider line to show you that we skip ahead a little bit. But getting into that time period of the update, we gained another 5% or so. And then on the update, we gained a couple more percent. And as we get to the end of April, more than 3/4, about 76, 77% of these URLs were mobile friendly. And now, skip ahead to December 1st, we're up to almost 80%. And we've hit 80% on some days. So this had the intended effect. Google convinced us to go mobile. They put the fear in us, and they got it to work. I think the mistake we can take from this is thinking that that's all they wanted to do, and they weren't serious. And I think a lot of what, I'm going to stick to desktop today, but a lot of what Larry showed you is changes are happening on mobile first. We know this. Google has said it. Every new feature I track on the SERPs has come to mobile and been designed for mobile before desktop. I think Google is very, very serious about mobile. They know CTR was suffering. They know they had to make changes. They know this is where things are headed, and they have to be adaptive. And so they definitely have a mobile-first attitude. I think it's just that they couldn't put the hammer down quite as hard as they wanted, and I expect we're going to see more of that next year. So I don't think Mobilegeddon was a one-day event. I think it's something that's going to happen over the course of a couple of years, and we're going to see that mobile-friendly URL adoption rate go up. The other freak out was RankBrain. We're still wondering what happened, and this one's a little weird because this is an article by Danny from the end of October when Google officially announced it. And what they announced is that they've added a machine learning component to the algorithm. So essentially, there's a black box that is being fed inputs and desired outcomes, and it's spitting back something like a ranking factor. And Google says that this is actually the third highest impact ranking factor right now. We don't know what that means out of hundreds. We don't know what percentage that is. But a couple things I want you to think about with this. One is that the best we know, Google said at the time that it rolled out a few months back, best we know it was spring of 2015. So this has been in play for many months now. The other side of it is that I think we have to think about what outcomes Google is training it on. If you look at any kind of traditional machine learning, you're telling it, we want you to take these inputs and we want you to try and achieve this outcome in a sense. We're training you on this outcome. We want high CTR or low dwell time or whatever it is, high dwell time, I mean, low bounce rate. And so I think it signals a move towards things like user signals. I don't think you can want to train a machine on how many keywords they have in the title or whether they're an exact match domain. And so the machine is going to start discovering ranking factors for Google. And so I think it is a push towards trying to develop more brand-like signals. And I think this push will go forward. The word I have is that Google was very reluctant at the top levels to adopt machine learning, and that this took a couple of years. But now that they put it out there, they saw a positive impact. They didn't see a lot of collateral damage. They are gaining confidence very quickly. They have a lot of machine learning and deep learning companies in their mix in the Alphabet pool, and so they want this to work. They love the PR. They want it to happen. It's going to continue to move forward next year. All right, local. I'm going to speed through this one, but I think as SEOs, we sometimes ignore local if we're traditional organic people, and so I want you to be aware because some really big things did happen. First of all, we were at the beginning of 2015 used to the traditional local pack of 2 to 7 results. That completely disappeared overnight this year and was replaced by this new 3-pack. So 7 packs are gone. They're no longer integrated into organic. We have a whole new design. It's more compelling, and it's tied directly to Google Maps. So we're no longer linking straight to our websites. This is a completely different experience. It has filters in some cases. This is one for tacos, one of my favorite subjects. It's often at the top of the SERP, whereas the packs could be distributed. And this has really had a big impact, not just on local SEOs, but on the organic positions that are left on this page. Here's another one. We call this the ABC pack. In this case, it's for a specific entity, Taco Bell. It's showing you their locations. And here again, we're not linking directly to the sites anymore. We're linking to Google Maps. And then they give you a separate website link. So from a local SEO perspective, this whole calculus, the CTR of this, how they're represented here, really changed quite a bit. Google is trying to drive people to Google Maps and to that experience, especially on mobile, and not necessarily to your website. And it's not always bad, but it can be. And then we saw the disappearance of what we call the one box. Essentially, if you have a organic result with a map pin and your address, last month those went away completely. And what we're seeing now is what we call the local knowledge panel. So this looks like a knowledge graph entity, but it's entirely local. You know, it's information about the restaurant, their hours, their menu, this popular times feature that rolled out this year where Google, you want to go in and say, oh, hey, I want to go tomorrow. When is it busiest? Reviews. This is a local entity. It's very authoritative. You know, it adds a lot of credibility, and it takes up a lot of screen real estate. This isn't just a map pin now, and for a while you could scroll over the map pin and this would pop up. This is always present on the page now. Big impact on those URLs on the left, especially for brand queries. Google also, I'm going to cross into paid a little bit because what we're seeing this year, and I think will continue, is integration of what seems like a knowledge panel and paid results. And Google has trained us to look at that entity on the right and see something that's organic-ish, let's say. We don't think of it as sponsored. We think of it as sort of an organic thing that's unbiased. And what they're starting to do is introduce paid features. So hotels, huge changes in the hotel industry this year, including the ability to book rooms and look at prices right in this local knowledge panel. And the thing about it is this is very credible. You know, this local knowledge panel is rich, it's compelling, it's credible, it's targeted. You know, people who are looking at this content are very likely to book a room, much more than your average searcher. And so this completely changes how people view that left-hand column. And I've graded out here for display purposes, but you know, you have to ask, what's happening to this on the left? Are people going to bother going directly to Kayak or to the Four Seasons site or to Expedia when they can do this directly through the knowledge panel itself? And we're seeing more and more of this. We see it for, we'll get into it later, but we see it for a lot of products now too. All right, the big one, knowledge graph. Huge changes in the knowledge graph this year. I'm going to start with a little one because I want you to think about the impact of this for next year. This is the medical knowledge panel. Query for irritable bowel. It comes up for conditions. It comes up for drugs. It comes up for drug brands and shows the generic, which is interesting, just a new thing. This is not traditional knowledge graph content that's built out of something like Wikidata or Freebase. This is actually custom content Google created. Google decided this was an important enough topic, and this is on a ton of queries right now, very competitive queries in healthcare, that they decided to go out and work with doctors and create unique content. Unique data, it's all vetted. The illustrations are all things that they created. And so this is a situation where Google moved from being a content curator to a content creator. I know from some private data that this had a big impact on some healthcare players. It really changed CTR in the left-hand column for a lot of people. It's expanded rapidly, and even if you're not in healthcare, what I want you to think about is if Google can step into an industry and create content, if they're willing to do that, and it's good content, it's compelling, it looks fantastic on mobile, it looks good on desktop, what happens when they step into your industry? We have to be aware of this. They will make these moves more and more. Big change this year, the rollout of the featured snippet. Google has a problem with knowledge graph, and I'm talking very fast, and I'm sorry, but a lot happened. Google has a problem, which is that knowledge graph built on things like Wikidata is human curated. And what we all know is that human curated search can't work after a point. It can't keep up with the pace of content creation. That's why Google got started. You know, Google was created to not be a directory, to be an automated search that crawled the web. And so we faced this problem with search in 2000, and with knowledge graph we've come back to it. They can't keep up with the questions. They can't keep up with the pace of content with human curated data. So what are they going to do? What did they do? They went to their index. They have the index of the web. So what if instead of relying on human curation, they mined our data for answers? And that's what we saw happen this year. These are becoming richer. This is, no pun intended, this is a query for richest woman in the world. And you see it's got a paragraph with some information about her. It's got her name, Christy Walton of the Walmart clan. And what we see here is this data is not coming from the traditional knowledge graph, it's coming from a blog post on Forbes. And if we click through to that blog post, hey, there it is, paragraph number 2. They just ripped it right out and stuck it on the SERP. So I want you to think about this tactically. We can debate this, I don't know what the word I want to use is, let's say ethically. I think Google has crossed the line in the webmaster relationship. You know, the relationship has always been that we will provide you with our content and you will give us traffic back. I think this is starting to cross the line that could be dangerous for them and for us. But I'll say a couple things. First, there have been some studies. Stone Temple, Eric, and Mark over there did some good studies showing that actually if these answers are pretty good, they give you credibility, they do drive clicks. But the other thing I want you to think about, because face it, we can't get them to stop. We can complain on Twitter all day long. They won't stop doing this. But what I want you to see is that this is actually a pure organic opportunity in a sense, and probably one of the biggest opportunities going into the next year. So here's a query for WiMAX. And Google interprets it as a question, and the question simply is, what is WiMAX? You know, define WiMAX. And so we have an answer that's pulled from searchtelecom.techtarget.com. I have no idea who they are, but they got the answer for some reason. And if you look at the bottom, past the grayed out part, there they are in organic position number 5. So I want you to think about 2 things before you complain about this and see what happened for them. Number 1 is that they appear twice on this SERP. They have 2 page 1 positions, which is pretty enviable. But number 2 is that they have catapulted from the number 5 position to what I call the number 0 position. And on a SERP where, frankly, they probably couldn't compete for number 1. You know, number 1 is Wikipedia. There's a big WiMAX forum that looks like it's pretty popular when I click through. There's CNET in the top 4. This is a site that, from an authority perspective, is not going to make it to number 1. That would be extremely expensive. And yet, they fairly easily and probably accidentally made it to the number 0 position and kept number 5. They're dominating the SERP in a way that they probably couldn't have before. This may change over time, and this may get harder to do, but right now there's opportunity. So over the last year, I kind of wanted to play around with a couple ideas. And one is that if this data actually comes from me, can I control it? You know, that's the risk Google takes. If they're taking my data, then I change the data, something happens. So we could do this in, you know, we could do this in some naughty ways, but let's do it in a nice way because Santa's coming soon. Here's a query for how much does Google make? And I wrote a post a few years back called How Much Does Google Make? And it's a weird visualization. And so it popped up last year with this answer. This post has nothing to do with SEO tactics. Okay, that's super helpful, thanks. Blah, 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 blah. For the record, they made $29 billion in 2010. Okay, this was 2014, the end of last year when I saw this. It's my post. It's a terrible answer. And so I thought, you know what if I rewrote the post, and not in a spammy way, but in a way that would be useful for people who were trying to answer this question. And so I rewrote the intro. I put in this new paragraph. Since the post was written in 2011, Google's revenues have roughly doubled, 58.8 billion, et cetera, et cetera. Good for users. Good for people trying to answer that question, especially years after the post was written. Good for Google, and Google picked it up. So yes, I do have some control over that. Now, if I put nonsense in there or something completely unrelated, would they take that away? Almost definitely. But I've improved the user experience. I've probably improved click-through to the post. I've kept the number 0 position, and we're number 1. And this is a dominant strategy for next year, I think. And it raises, of course, the next question, which is, what if somebody else has that box at the top and I don't? Could I take it from them? So Moz, you may know we have some custom metrics, page authority, domain authority. And so we were tracking some searches like what is page authority, and we saw that someone else is ranking for that. And we thought, well, we invented it. We'd like to represent what it means to us, and of course, we'd like to have that top spot. And so I looked, and we have this kind of traditional SEO title, page authority, learn SEO Moz. Our definition was kind of buried in the post a couple paragraphs deep. And the person who had the post in the box has, you know, what is page authority? They answered it right away. They were very targeted to the question. But we were in number 1, so we thought, well, we should have a pretty good shot. So we rewrote the page. We changed the title, pretty basic, to what is page authority. We moved the definition up. We made it a more direct, concise answer. and we were able to take that box. So two things to know. One of the very few things I've sort of confirmed with Google this year. One is that to have a featured snippet, you have to rank on page 1. But once you've cleared the page 1 hurdle, it becomes more of a relevance calculation. So it's kind of a two-stage process. It's not like the most authoritative site will automatically win. You have to be authoritative enough to get on page 1. But once you're on page 1, they're going to look and see how closely you match the question or the implied question. So here the question, what is page authority, is very explicit. On that WYMAX query, Google is reading that as, what does WYMAX stand for? What is WYMAX? So if you can be a better match and you're on page 1, you've got a chance of taking that top spot. I think it's something to go after for competitive queries in 2016. Out of this spun another new feature. Google calls it related questions. You may think of it as people also ask, because that's what the box says. It's popping up on broad queries that seem a little ambiguous. So Monopoly. Well, okay, you might want to know about monopolies and economics. You might want to know about the board game. We're not sure what you want to know. So let's put these questions in here. And if you click on any of these questions, what you see is, again, data coming from our site. Something like a featured snippet where they're mining the index for data. And they're not only generating the answers, but if you look at enough of these questions, you begin to see that they're generating questions. So the machine is extracting answers and creating questions now. So this is going to expand. This is only going to be more important. This is the only way they can grow the knowledge graph. Why I think you should care about this is because when it launched the middle of this year and we started tracking it, related questions were on just over 1% of the 10,000 queries we tracked. As of early December, that jumped twice to 8%. It is, it's a plus 500%, but it's actually a 6x growth. I did that math a little wrong. It's added 500% since launch. Huge growth in this feature. Expected to continue. Google is invested in this idea. All right, so what's this tell us about next year? A couple things. We're going to see more of the same. This already exists now, but I want to point it out because of the formatting. Here's one for high-fat foods, and it's giving you a featured snippet, but that featured snippet has a picture, it has a bulleted list. Google is taking formatting from sites. They're taking bulleted lists, they're taking tables. They're going to do more of that. They're trying to do kind of what Larry showed you with the ads, where it's changing text into these boxes with your logo and color and everything else. Google is trying to take your content and repurpose it and make it actually richer and richer and more useful. Now, this isn't too bad for the site because of that more items. People might click through and see it, so it's okay for them for now. But expect this to continue. I saw a table version. I can't remember what the pricing for something weird, lattes or something. And the Google version in the table was actually much more attractive and well-designed than the original site. And so, you know, Google is going to try and make this a richer, more compelling experience. This will only increase next year. I think we're going to see more of that integration between paid and knowledge panels. So if I go to this recent Kung Fury, which is pretty funny if you love the 80s, there's something, it doesn't even say ads or sponsored, but, sorry, available on, hey, you can pay to watch it on iTunes or Amazon or Vudu. We saw this for movies and music. We're starting to see it for books and video games. Expect that to continue. Things that look like knowledge panels that we think of as organic, but that have a paid component that are going to compete with organic results. Here's one that looks entirely like a knowledge panel for iPhone 6s, not a uncompetitive query at all. It's entirely paid. If you look at what's over here, it's got all of the hallmarks of a classic product page, where you can buy it, prices, user reviews, product details. There's pull downs now for color, size, carrier. This is a very rich shopping experience made to look organic, embedded in the SERP. What does this do to the organic on the left-hand column, even for Apple? You know, this is a compelling experience. This is going to continue. This year, Google got into home services. They have their own, they're competing with Porch and Amazon and some of those companies. And in the Bay Area, for now, they rolled out a test market of sponsored results that, again, they look kind of like answer boxes. So I type in house cleaners in San Jose. I get this list of people. They're vetted. They have rich information. Takes me right to a lead gen system, essentially. This is paid, but it has an organic looking component. You know, it's a hybrid. And we're going to see more of that. I don't think we can just afford to think of ourselves as just PPC people or just SEO people. And I'm glad that so many companies had that crossover, as Noel's poll showed, because you have to be aware. If this is happening in your niche and you're only thinking about being number one, what does number one organic mean on this SERP when the entire game in that niche has changed? And then finally, I think you'll see a little more of this bad news in 2016. Here's obviously a brand query for Montblanc, the pen company. You look about the middle there, we have a number one organic result for them with site links because it's a brand query. But look at the rest of this page above the fold. We've got ads, we've got paid shopping, we've got a knowledge panel, business knowledge panel essentially. We've got Twitter results under that number one organic. And actually, if you keep scrolling, there's image results and then news articles before you get to the second organic listing. We're going to see more of this. We're going to see more and more rich features. We're going to see more diverse SERPs. This page one SERP, because it had Twitter as a vertical now, because it had 3 verticals and site links, it only had 5 organic results. So in addition to Montblanc, there's only 4 other spaces to compete with on this front page. So not only do you have half the usual 10, but number 2 is being pushed way below the fold. So this is a completely different ecosystem from an SEO landscape. And I think you're going to see a lot more of this coming. All right. Sorry, I talked fast, but I hope that all made sense.
Definitely. Thank you so much for all of that detail, Pete. Those were great screenshots. I am going to open a poll as I launch into some questions that we have here from the audience. So anybody who is on the call today can actually take advantage of a special offer from WordStream. If you are interested in taking advantage of our special offer, you can opt in here briefly. So I'll pop that up, but I'm going to go ahead and while I do that, ask you guys my first question. That way we're not holding for anybody. So my first question is, Search Engine Land recently posted an article about Google backing the Accelerated Mobile Pages project. How do you think this will impact the state of search as we move into 2016? I know you both touched on mobile being so important. Do you see any more changes coming down the line?
We're both stalling.
I kind of view AMP as more of a kind of an organic concern. Do you want to speak to that one, Pete?
Yeah, we don't know a lot yet, which is why I hesitate. I think it's part of Google's overall quest for speed, and it makes sense. I think the hard thing right now is trying to figure out what control that takes away from us. So it reminds me a little bit of when Google changed image search and kind of cached everything, and now we weren't getting those image hits anymore because it's all kind of being stored by Google. And it really changed people who rely on image search on the traffic they got and the attribution they got. And so it seems like AMP is kind of creating this middle layer between organic and kind of your mobile page or your application. The really interesting thing about it that they're saying, and I'm not a mobile expert, but Cindy Crum was talking a little bit about this, is that one of the things they're trying to do is take app experiences, and this goes with deep. So Google is doing now on mobile deep linking into apps. So they're taking content that wouldn't normally be crawlable, like your app, and letting you kind of link into that from organic. And one of the things that AMP is going to do is take your app experience and translate it into the browser. I don't know if this is going to go beyond Chrome, but at least in Chrome, they're going to kind of make it an experience that you can view in your browser even without having that app installed. So I think that's really interesting, but we don't know what kind of adoption rate that's going to have or what kind of technical hurdles that's going to have or how many people are going to adopt it. I don't think it's going to be an overnight thing, but it's going to mean a lot of changes in the next year or so.
It kind of just feels like a really aggressive knowledge graph, Pete. Like this idea of caching entire pages as opposed to just using images and snippets. And of course, lucky Google, they can just claim that, oh, we're doing this to improve the user experience. Any thoughts on that? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think improving the user experience correlates about 0.99 with improving Google's profits, which isn't to say it's not true, but it's a conveniently high relationship. I don't know. I don't know how Because if they rewrap your app experience, you know, they can say, well, the benefit is users can jump right into your app. Users can jump right into this content, and you don't have that barrier between you and the users. On the other hand, if that's my first experience, then I'm probably not going to install your app because I can get to it right from Google search. And so does it change things like app adoption rates or visits to your mobile website because Google's pulling in more and more of this data? So yeah, it could be good for users and still bad for us, and too soon to tell, unfortunately.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So my next question comes from our audience. Pete, you touched on this a little bit. They're curious to know what you recommend for service companies or what's upcoming for people who, you know, maybe it's a plumber or an electrician who make a lot of house calls. Do you see anything changing for service industry, Pete or Larry?
So I'll say a couple of words on this one. I think basically you're talking about is local search. So like those plumbers and all that stuff, that's all local search results listings that are very customized based on your geography. So I'm going to take the view that I think this is like SEO is toast, because like what I'm seeing is like these spaces are going to become like the next Google Shopping, where Google Shopping kind of, you know, took out all the organic shopping results. You know, these are, you know, commercial queries, generally speaking. So people are looking to buy things, which means people are more likely to be open to clicking on ads. So it's not terribly annoying for the user experience. And just look at what they're doing in the local listings. You know, cutting it from 7 to 3. You know, and you know, coming up with all these crazy ad formats that are taking up all the space. So I think it's becoming an increasingly like paid game. I don't know if Pete agrees. Any thoughts?
I do, especially for hyperlocal and for small. I think plumbers are a good example. You know, and we've seen organic go the other way. Like Panda, what did Panda punish? One of the things it punished was all the people trying to roll out these pages with like plumbers in Boston and plumbers in every suburb and plumbers in every neighboring town rolled out to 5,000 things because it's such thin, useless content. And so they push so hard on hyperlocal. They really want you to be where your influence actually is and not pretend to be everywhere. And yeah, we're seeing more and more of that paid local crossover. And I think it's a matter of awareness. You know, that the new the home services, I don't know when it's going to roll out nationwide or city by city or how they're going to do it. I've heard it's a few $100s to get vetted for that. So, you know, if you're a mom and pop shop, that may not be the place for you. If you're a mid-sized brand with multiple locations, I think it's kind of a no-brainer that you're going to have to be there to compete. And I think you just have to be aware of it. You can't treat this as a pure play organic situation. And especially with mobile, you know, these are just inherently local services. The other thing I'd say is, you know, some people are kind of put off by the Google Maps integration and these new knowledge panels because it's harder to get to your site now, and that sucks. But as a local business, the perspective I would take is look at it from a lead gen perspective. If they're showing your hours and your phone number and your address and it makes you look credible and it's brand building and they don't visit your site and you're a local plumber, that's okay. You know, take the phone call, take the lead wherever it comes. It's harder to measure, but don't be so obsessed with that organic ranking that you lose track of where actual lead gen opportunities are.
Great feedback. Thanks, guys. My next question is in regards to, it's both paid and organic, actually. We have seen recently that Google has been sneaking a fourth paid listing into the top PPC results. So generally, you know, there's 3 results on the top, and they're adding a fourth one. Do we expect to see more of that in 2016? And if so, what does that mean for the future of SEO?
I'll jump in first. I'm sure Larry has opinions on this one because I've been tracking this. And yeah, they're running a test on the queries we track on about 1%, usually overnight. So it looks like a very classic test. What I've heard from people is that they've run this 4-ad test in the past and it's never rolled out. What I see is the intent is there. You know, they keep wanting to push that envelope, so they're serious. If they see it's lousy for CTR, they won't roll it out, but they're thinking about it. They're thinking about what's next. One prediction I made last year that hasn't come true yet is that, when Google went to the individual ad labels because of SEC and EU pressure, when they put that little box that says ad next to each ad, and they took the ads out of that colored box, they opened up the opportunity that they could actually start to split those ads up and intersperse them in organic. So I think they have the potential to be flexible. It's just that they're always worried. They're always worried about how that's going to impact revenue and CTR. They're never going to be so aggressive that they hurt themselves, but they're going to push the envelope all the time. So they're going to keep testing this stuff. Will it roll out? No idea, but it wouldn't shock me.
So Pete, I think what's changing, I know they've tried this before, I think what's changing is that they're getting better at kind of identifying which are the keyword queries with high commercial intent and being a little bit more selective of not showing these fourth ads on, just any run-of-the-mill search, but only the ones where they're clearly looking to buy something. And so, like I said before, people don't mind ads if they were already looking to buy something in the first place. And so, I think as that improves, the more likely they are to be successful in these types of queries. And of course, they need to grow their revenues. Kind of taking a big view, I kind of think that all the examples that you were providing, Pete, were they were very informational in nature. I don't know, I can't remember them all, but there were a lot of like some kind of medical conditions and all this stuff. They were very informational in nature, and I just view kind of organic listings as being kind of a less and less in terms of their representation in high commercial query intent search queries, where they're going to be, going to be even more overwhelmingly paid, but still plenty of opportunity in the 85% of queries that are non-commercial in intent. Any thoughts on that, Pete?
No, totally agree. If you look at the landscape for an informational query versus a brand or / navigational versus commercial, they're like three different animals now. So yeah, I completely agree with that. So what's your gut? Are they going to roll out the 4 ads, or you think it's coming?
Yeah, for a narrower set of
for
high
very
commercial,
targeted,
high commercial queries. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. So one final question from our audience. So BuzzSumo recently posted that Facebook is driving about 25% of web traffic. How will these apps and just the growth of searches that are taking place in apps like Twitter and Facebook impact search as we look at 2016? Do you think there's something that marketers can plan to do with their strategy to kind of get around this uptick, or what are your thoughts there?
It's really tough right now. One of the things I worry about is, yes, some sites, and I think you have to know your site. Some sites get massive traffic from social, some get very little, and it really depends on the niche. One of the things we saw, we had a very active Facebook following. We got tons of traffic. We put solid time investment. We have our own community team into Facebook. And then Facebook pushed the promoted posts and changed the way they do things. And like a lot of people, our numbers dropped a ton. I mean, we had a huge fall off in Facebook traffic. And so I think the trick right now with a lot of things is it worth some investment? And is social real? Absolutely. We're seeing some networks are growing, some are declining, but obviously Facebook traffic is very real. But I still worry about putting too many eggs in that basket and living on Facebook, having your brand identity and home there and having all of your content live there, because they can make, and Google can too, but they can make that overnight change that kind of takes it all away. So will we see diverging traffic sources, and have we? Yes. But should you bet on any one just because the number seems high? No, because the rules could change.
I think
you have to diversify. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Pete is talking about organic social. I would strongly encourage people to be looking into paid social, like ads, like sponsored posts on Facebook and Twitter, and other social networks like Instagram. People spend something like 4% of their time searching for things, and 96% of their time consuming content, like browsing Facebook or doing their email or whatever. And so just trying to have your ads show up where people are actually spending their time and having a good allocation there makes a lot of sense to me. Unquestionably, though, the desktop searches are kind of flat or even declining. So like the growth is only coming from mobile. So just stuff sessions that you used to go onto a desktop to search for I don't know, a Japanese restaurant or something like this. It's like you just go into the Yelp app or something like this and look up those queries, and that's taking some toll. So yeah, just diversify. What Pete said.
Awesome.
I definitely agree with what you said on the Facebook ads, because that traffic from Facebook didn't disappear. It just went from one group of people to a different group of people, and the people it went to were the ones who paid Facebook. So that's the reality we live in, and if you want that traffic back, that's what has to happen.
Great. Well, we're right at the top of the hour, so I'm going to have to hold the rest of the questions. If anyone wants to reach out to us, you can tweet at Dr._Pete or Larry Kim on Twitter. We also have the hashtag WordStream 2016 predictions. We can get back to you if we didn't get to your questions today. Thank you, Pete, for being our special guest, and thank you, Larry. Both of your insights were super helpful, and I think our audiences both will appreciate all of this information. So thanks, guys, and until next time, have a great holiday, and we'll see you in next year.
Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Larry.
Bye.